People with new ideas, whether they have neurodiversity or not, are threatening to the status quo, right? And there's nothing wrong with the status quo per se. The reason the status quo exists is because things are kind of working, right? And the people who are the most defensive of the status quo are people who benefit from the status quo. So if you come in and say, I'm going to try something new with no guarantee of success, and by the way, if we fail, you're all going to lose your jobs, not a lot of takers, which is why most people don't start businesses. Most people aren't entrepreneurs, and nor should they be, because the chances of failure are overwhelming. And even if you have the desire and you've got a family and kids, like, it's just not worth the risk, because the chances are in the high 90th percentiles that you're going to fail in the first 3 years. And so you have to remember that. And so my rule has never been to try and convince people who don't want to be convinced. Because all you're going to do is fight. I'm right, you're wrong. And they're going to say, no, I'm right, you're wrong. And you're both right, contextually. For me, my religion for new ideas has been something called the law of diffusion of innovations, bell curve. In every population, you're going to have a standard deviation. You're going to have high performers, you're going to have low performers, you're going to have an average. Always, right? What Emmett Rogers wrote about in the 1950s when he wrote about the law of diffusion is that the first 2.5% of any population, this one included, are going to be your big idea people, your innovators, Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, right? The next 12.5% of your population are your early adopters. These are the people who are very comfortable spending time, money, or energy to be a part of something that reflects their own beliefs. They have a pretty good risk tolerance. They stand in line for 48 hours to see a new Star Wars movie where you could just go 2 weeks later and buy a ticket and go in. For them, that's worth it, right? Then you have your majority, the 68%. More cynical, more practical. What's in it for me? Will I get my money back? Am I going to get in trouble if everything goes wrong, right? Then you have your laggards, the last 16%. The only reason they make any change is because you have no choice. The law of diffusion says that if mass market success or mass market acceptance for any idea or product, you have to achieve between 15 and 18% market penetration. And there's a social phenomenon that happens called a tipping point. It just goes. And the reason is very simple. It's because the early majority will not try something until someone else has tried it first. The problem is that if you ignore this, you'll always get about 10% of people who believe what you believe, who see what you see, right? Always.